Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Vegetable Gardening here in St. Johns County with our special guest, Terra Freeman. I am Amy Ackerman, the Assistant Branch Manager of the Main Library in St. Augustine, Florida, part of the St. Johns County Public Library System. We're really excited to have Terra here today to talk with us a little bit more about organic vegetable home gardening. Terra, can you introduce yourself a little bit, please?
Sure. Hi, Amy. My name is Terra Freeman. I am the Horticulture Extension Agent and Master Gardener Program Coordinator for St. Johns County. So my role is to educate and provide information, help with diagnostics on all things related to horticulture.
So I was really excited by your proposed topic today about organic home vegetable gardening. It's a term that's kind of thrown around, and it's something that I'm a little unfamiliar with. So when it comes to organic gardening, what are some reasons why people might want to practice this with their home vegetable gardens?
A lot of people are interested in organic vegetable gardening. For personal health and safety and environmental reasons. When you practice organic gardening methods, you tend to be more in tune to everything that is going into your garden, whether it's the soil amendments, the choice of fertilizers, etc. Because you have to pay attention to your cultural methods, which ultimately are a part of organic vegetable gardening.
So I understand that plant selection plays a huge part in successfully practicing organic gardening methods. What are some things that people should be taking into consideration, especially if they're new to the area?
Okay, so plant selection is one of the most important tenets in organic vegetable gardening. When you are selecting plants for our area in North Florida, it's important to look for plants that are resistant to certain diseases, certain pests. Those that are new to Florida might be surprised when they grow their first vegetable garden at how many pests, diseases, etc., are out there attacking their plants. And that is just because, further north, they have colder winters that tend to kick back or kill off a lot of the pests. But here we have warmer weather. This winter was particularly colder than usual, so hopefully we'll have less pests out there. But in general, we do tend to have more pests year-round in our vegetable gardens as well as the rest of our landscape, and that's why.
So right now in April, what are good plants for us to be planting in our vegetable gardens?
Okay, so April, we are in the thick of warm season vegetable gardening here. And there are a myriad of plants you can choose from. You can plant your beans, both bush and pole beans, cantaloupes, corn, cucumbers, eggplants, okra, peppers, peas, sweet potatoes, squashes, tomatoes, watermelon. There's a lot you can be planting right now. And in regards to plant selection, I did want to make a note about heirloom varieties.
Yeah, what are those?
A lot of people are really interested in heirloom vegetable varieties. They're kind of neat. They've been passed down from generation to generation for various reasons. So whether they have a superior flavor, color, or texture, there's something about them that have made people choose to keep them around. So in order to be considered heirloom, they have to have a few characteristics. They need to be true to type, which means if you sow the seed from that particular fruit, it will create a plant that is identical to the parent plant. So true to type, open pollinated, and technically they need to be in use for at least 50 years to be considered heirloom. Now, one thing I do like to mention about heirloom, because I love to grow them for these other characteristics, but keep in mind they do not necessarily have that disease resistance that other varieties and cultivars have been specifically selected for their disease or pest resistance.
Okay. So when we find the plants that we'd like to grow, what can we do organically for soil amendments or maybe compost or different types of organic matter? What should we be doing and what should we take into consideration?
Okay, so with organic vegetable gardening, soil health is key. So next to plant selection, soil health is number one. So adding organic matter to the soils is essential. In the last program that we had last month, we talked about compost. So if you haven't seen that yet, it would be good to tune into the compost segment. But creating compost, adding that to your garden. So Florida soils are naturally very low in organic matter. So when you add the organic matter, such as compost, it improves the overall structure of the soil. It improves its ability to hold water, nutrients, oxygen, and it also improves the buffering capacity, which is the soil's resistance to sudden changes in pH. Because if the pH is off, if it's not in the range for the vegetables you're growing, they won't be able to use the nutrients that you are giving them.
So speaking of pH, what sort of fertilizers or organic fertilizers should we be considering?
Oh, okay. So I think this is a good time to point out that with organic gardening, so organic fertilizers refer to a soil amendment that's been derived from natural sources, and it guarantees a minimum percentage of a certain nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So on the fertilizer label, you'll see NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So look to the label of the products you're using to see what that percentage is. So organic fertilizers, they are not necessarily in a form that's readily available for the plants. So it actually requires the soil microbes to convert the organic fertilizer into the inorganic form for the plants to use. And this takes a little bit of time, so it's best to add your organic fertilizers to the garden a few weeks before planting. So for example, different fertilizers have different amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So blood meal, for instance, has 12 to 15% nitrogen, but lower percentages of phosphorus and potassium. So for phosphorus, you would go for bone meal. That has 21%, which is pretty high. Although keep in mind the importance of doing a soil test, not just for pH, but for nutrients, because Florida's soils are naturally high in phosphorus to begin with, so it may not be necessary to add any phosphorus. And then if you're looking for a source of potassium, seaweed has 5% potassium. Another benefit for using organic fertilizers is that a lot of them tend to have micronutrients in them as well. So in addition to the macronutrients, which are the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, plants also need micronutrients. And these could be boron, copper, iron, manganese, etc. So plants need these as well, just in smaller quantities.
Now, you mentioned soil test, and that's something that we talked about in a previous program. That's something people can do through the Extension office, correct?
Absolutely. So in our office, we do free pH testings, but if you want to get the macro and micronutrient analysis as well, you'll need to send that off to the IFAS soils lab. And I can easily send people the link for that. But if you just do an internet search and you typed in, UF soils lab, you'll find it pretty easily. And that's in Gainesville, and it's an inexpensive fee. I think it's $12. And then you get the pH, macro, and micronutrient analysis for your garden. So
fantastic.
Well,
and I'll be sure to include the link in the final edit of this video too.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
So we've got our plants picked out. We've got soil, we've got compost, fertilizer. What are organic methods for irrigation, or why is irrigation particularly important for organic vegetable gardening?
Good question. So I think the most important thing for any gardener to understand in regards to irrigation is that we want to water the soil, not the foliage, not the plant, not the fruit. We're watering the roots in the soil. When foliage gets wet, especially repeatedly, that tends to make the plant much more susceptible to diseases, fungus, etc. So we have enough of a challenge with that in Florida's humid, rainy environment as it is. So we don't want to add to that. So drip irrigation delivers the water straight to the root zone, to the soil. So drip irrigation is ideal for vegetable gardening. And plus you can easily put it on a timer so that you're not overwatering.
Excellent. Okay, so what happens let's see here, what are ways for us to prevent pests from coming along in the first place?
Okay, so I would say the most effective pest management is good cultural practices. So that's following the correct planting dates, using plants that are resistant to pests and diseases, proper irrigation, proper fertilizer, crop rotation. Crop rotation is key. So that is basically, so many pests are attracted to plants that are in the same family. So for example, bell peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants, those are all in the Solanaceae family. So you want to avoid planting crops from the same family in the same section of the garden in consecutive seasons so that the plants don't build up in that area. So rotating the crop will interfere with the life cycle of pests in the soil. So that's key. Let's see, organic pest control. So the first thing is also regular scouting. So just keeping an eye on your plants. And if you notice a bug, well, first of all, don't assume that it's a pest. It could be a beneficial insect. So taking some time to learn what the common pest and common beneficial insects look like is helpful. We have tons of publications out there and we can help with that as well. But if you notice there's a problem, an abundance of a pest on your plant, the first thing to do is notice it and then just remove the leaves, remove the pest or remove whatever leaves are initially infested with it, throwing them away, not in the compost pile, but putting them in the trash so they're out of the garden. But if the pests do get to the point where you need to use a product, let's say, there are many certified organic products out there. And by certified organic, we're referring to the OMRI label. It's OMRI. It stands for Organic Material Review Institute. So if you're using a fertilizer or a pesticide that has that label on it, it's labeled for organic usage. But let's see, in general, a lot of the pests we get on vegetables are what we call piercing sucking insects, or like soft-bodied piercing sucking insects. So these would be aphids, whiteflies, spider mites, mealybugs, certain types of scale. And these can be easily treated if you need to use a product with insecticidal soaps or horticultural oils. And then if you have a caterpillar type pest, there's BT for that. And there are also different varieties of neem oil depending on the pest. So just read the label. Whatever you're doing starts off with properly identifying the pest and getting the right type of product for that pest. And then using it according to the label so that we're not overdoing it.
Fantastic. I think these are all really good tips for people who are considering organic home vegetable gardening. Thank you, Tara.
You're very welcome.
Let's see here. So if people do have some further questions and want to follow up with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Okay, so I'm easily reached through email or the phone. Email is nice because you can send pictures as well, and I can send people not only answer their question, but I can send related publications that they can have further information on. So my email is terraf, TERRAF @ufl.edu, and also welcome to call on the phone as well. And we do have a master gardener. We call it the phone desk. We have master gardeners a few days a week here. With the pandemic still, we're not 100%. We don't have one here every day. So it's best to call ahead of time, but you can stop in and talk to them as well.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Tara. We appreciate all of your tips and tricks, and we will see you next time for our next program.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me, Amy.
Thank you.
Bye.